Hi, I'm Dr. John Gartner.
And I'm Dr. Harry Segal. And together, our show is
Shrinking Trump, where we analyze Trump from a psychological point of view. We have a new podcast on the Really American Network. We hope that you'll watch on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, you can find it on Spotify and also on Apple.
Terrific. Well, a lot of people have been asking, how is Trump going to respond from a psychological point of view to the conviction? And how is the country going to respond? I think there's good news and bad news. The good news is that the country actually is responding to the conviction. Polls show that 45% of independents and 10% of Republicans think that he should drop out. A whole string of polls show that 2 to 8% of the electorate would make his conviction determinative of their vote. And that's sounds like a small number, but it's enough to influence the election. And he becomes so desensitized, thinking that nothing matters anymore. It's nice to discover something does matter. So that's the good news.
The bad news is that Trump is very powerful in the ways in which he's interviewed, the ways in which he spins what's going on, and he has surrogates who are walking in lockstep. For example, on Saturday morning, using the B team, the Fox and Friends Saturday group, who are even less experienced than Stephen Doocy and his friends, Trump was given an hour-and-a-half interview in which he was praised and cajoled and never asked one challenging question. Now, they only showed 11 minutes of it, and then another 7 minutes of it heavily edited. But you can find the hour-and-a-half interview unedited on the web. And what we found will perhaps surprise you. John?
Well, here's an example of the hard-hitting questions that he got on Fox.
And I know that you've said before that you've been sustained by the prayers of lots of Americans. I've seen pictures of people praying over you.
It's incredible, actually.
Her question is, she says, you've been faced with so much adversity and persecution for years. What's your relationship with God like, and how do you pray? That's Sharon from Alabama.
Okay, so I think it's good. I do very well with the evangelicals. I love the evangelicals. And I have more people saying they pray for me. I can't even believe it. And they are so committed, and they're so believing. They say, sir, you're going to be okay. I pray for you every night. I mean, everybody, almost, I can't say everybody, but almost everybody that sees me, they say it. It's such a beautiful thing. You know what's a beautiful thing, too? When you look at all of this bad stuff going on, they have nothing to look up to. They have no God. They have no anything. They kill people. They beat people. They push people into subways. There's just nothing there. Religion is such a great thing. It keeps you, there's something to be good about. You want to be good. It's so important. And I don't know if it's explained right. I don't know if I'm explaining it right now. But when you have something like that, you want to be good. You want to go to heaven. Okay? You want to go to heaven. If you don't have heaven, you almost say, what's the reason?
Yeah.
Why do I have to be good? Let's not be good. What difference does it make? Right? Or they try to create heaven here.
Notice how he didn't answer the question about his relationship with God. He just talked about how because evangelicals love him and they pray for him.
And this sort of rambling description of the other side has nothing to live for because they have nothing to look up to. He actually diagnoses himself as a psychopath in this little piece of tape, which is interesting because we know when we're as psychologists, right? People who are not psychopaths, when they do bad things, their conscience causes them to feel bad. And that's a good thing. Okay. Psychopaths might not do a bad thing if they thought they were going to be punished, but not because they feel bad about it. So what Trump says, hey, if you're not going to be punished, why wouldn't you be bad? So it's just important to see that. But really, look at this whole interview, how they've kind of created this. They start with, so-and-so from Maine says, you've experienced so much persecution. How has that affected your? These are the kind of questions that he's getting. Right? He's just been prosecuted, not persecuted. Okay, but now we're looking at it from the lens of he's being persecuted, and these are the kind of hard questions that he's getting on Fox. And what people need to understand is that he came across in this interview, people have made fun of it, right? They've made fun of the fact that it was sort of rambling and shambling. But when you see how these Fox interviewers are giving him these softball questions, I call them cupcake questions. They're so sweet. He's like, just lick the frosting. Okay. And then they laugh when he says things that are inappropriate. They say things like, oh, I know. So they're affirming when he's making crazy statements that we didn't have time to go into, that people can't play baseball in the park anymore, that Little League's been canceled all over the country because of the migrants that are taking up spaces on the playing fields, that girls are quitting sports. They're giving up en masse because of the transgender athletes. And we're being invaded we've already been invaded by a Chinese army. He saw 29,000 Chinese soldiers invading us on TV. These are crazy things that he's saying. These are crazy paranoid fantasies. And yet I have met people socially who have actually said, look, I know you're political, but it's terrible. These girls, they're all dropping out of sports. I've had someone explain this to me. So what happens is he has a paranoid fantasy. They echo it on Fox, and then the people believe it, and then he is the one who's going to save them. The other thing I want to say about his conviction is one of the things that Jerome Frank said on our show on Shrinking Trump is that he is energized by conflict. So people who think he's going to be damaged, internally by this conviction are not really understanding the psychology of Trump. He lives for this kind of hate and conflict. He runs on hate fuel. And so he's been damaged politically. That's the good news. The few sane people are not going to use it. But he's been energized. He loves to be the victim. He loves to fight from that position. And it's going to make him more paranoid, more angry, and more vindictive. And if he ever gets power, he will take revenge to a degree which we're not even conceiving of, I think.
True.
All right.
So on our show every week, we have a number of features. We look at the week in Trump. We track instances of his cognitive slippage as well as his malignant narcissism. And we have a guest who comes in to shed more light and more insight. And we have a good time. We are doing what we can to help enlighten the public and to educate them to think clinically about what's going on with Trump. So our show is Shrinking Trump. You can find us on the Really American Network on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we hope you'll visit us. Our shows drop every Friday afternoon.
I am the chosen one.
Good clip. All right. See you next session.